Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Hi there. Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. So you're probably wondering what I was all on about with the little melodramatic thing I did in the intro. And I just really disappointed in Erson cams. If you've been following our channel, the last video I posted there where we were working on degreeing the cam for the which was an Erson cam, and we had some issues with it. It was 16 degrees off in its timing, retarded, as they say, late, and it just wasn't going to work. And you can't adjust the timing. You can't adjust that much out at 16 degrees anyway. But the Ford 6-cylinder doesn't have like an adjustable keyways and all like your small block Chevy does. So pretty much has to be right the way you want it when you stab it in there. So anyway, so at first, they didn't quite believe that the cam could be bad. And the machinist who actually ordered the cam for me came over, and he degreed the cam himself, came up with the same numbers I did, and got him to agree to send us another cam, and we never heard from him. So I wasn't really in a big hurry. I mean, obviously this last video series was back in December, but I think now we've kind of waited long enough. It's April, so they never called us back. He had to call a couple times and follow up with his contact there, and they just kept saying, well, we ain't got no cores, and we don't know when we're going to get a core, and core being the stick of metal that they actually grind the cam out of. And finally, I said enough's enough. And so we went with a bullet cam, and we have it now. So we're going to stab that puppy in there, and I went ahead and got a new timing gear set. I guess I'll fire my oven up here, because we're going to have to heat that timing gear up to put it on the end of the cam. And let's get started. Alright, so we've got our cam gear warming up in the oven there, and since it's a pressed on gear, we're going to warm it up, and it's going to expand a little bit, which is going to make it a little easier to go on here, and then when it cools down, it'll shrink back to normal size and be super duper tight. So now what we've got to before we put our gear on here, we'll have to install a few pieces first. So first thing that has to go on is this little ring, and it has a bevel on the back side here. Let's see if I can get that to you where you can see it. Anyway, it's beveled on one side and then it's flat on the other, and you want to put your beveled side towards the cam right there like that. Now I'm going to zoom the camera in a little bit, and I'll show you where we're going to put our little Woodruff key here on there. That lines up with the groove in the timing gear. And then, last but not least, this is a thrust plate, and that'll go on, and that just keeps the cam from walking back and forth inside the block. Now we want to go ahead and get our little timing key here on the end of the shaft, Now, you don't necessarily have to put this on yet, so we don't want it bouncing around. And then we're just going to very gently seat this key down in here. And we have to make sure we get it down in there nice and even, because we don't want it to be fighting this when we go to put that gear on. And make sure that I'll get you in here. I want to make sure that, you know, it's even. You know, we don't want it rocked this way or that way, so that when we go to slide our gear on there, it'll go on there without any fuss. And that looks good. Then put our thrust plate on there. Always got to make sure you do that. And you can always tell, you know, which way it goes on there, because you'll see the hex from the bolts that hold it on one side and not the other, if you happen to get that confused. So you just want to make sure that's on there like that. And then ideally, I mean, I've used a press before, but ideally the best way to put these on is just it's like a 7/16 bolt. Screw in the end of this cam here, and then you have your little nut on there that you can run that gear on with, and that just takes it on there nice and smooth and easy. And we're going to have to work quickly here, because that timing gear is going to be hot as blazes. I got my wrenches at the ready here, and we'll get this out of here. And what I've done is made sure the snout of this cam is nice and clean, and then I just rubbed a little bit of light oil on there just so we don't have any issues here. It's just like baking cookies. Only a timing gear doesn't taste good. Now, we've got our, make sure we get our gear in the right orientation. The correct side will have your timing mark on it that faces out. So that's actually, this side faces out, because there's our timing mark right there. So let's get this thing on here. And she's good and hot, so let me make sure. There we go. Get her started. And get this in here a few threads. And then I'm just going to put this in here, shut that off, and close the door so I don't burn myself. And away we go. Hold cam here, and we'll just run her on like so. And she should go on pretty easy, but it's going to get progressively harder as that cam gear cools down. So we want to make sure we've got this thing to where we can hold it. You can see with it wrapped in cardboard and it's shipping stuff here, this gives me a little extra oomph to be able to hold it, keep it from twisting. And then we run her down until she's flush. Check your little thrust plate back there and make sure. There she goes, she's in. You'll know, because once it gets flush, that nut will lock up and you can't get it can't tighten it anymore. So, all right. Back that off of there like so. I'm here to tell you that cam gear is hot. What I usually do is I'll set my oven to 350 degrees and just put that gear in a skillet and just let it sit in there for, I don't know, 10-15 minutes and let it get hot. And as it gets hot, it expands. So, and it expands just enough to make it go on that cam nice and easy. Well, easier, you know. Now, one other thing that I'll do, just to make it a little easier to put this cam in there, being a 6-cylinder engine, you know, this camshaft's pretty long, and it's hard to, you know, finagle it in there through all the cam bearings. And of course, you don't want to nick any of the cam lobes or bump anything like that. So what I'll do is I'll take a 7/16 bolt, about 6 or 7 inches long, and then I'll stick my nut on here like so. And then put me a washer on there and thread it into the end of the cam a little bit. And the reason I want to tighten it up real good is so that I can use this to go ahead and be able to actually rotate the camshaft. So I'll go ahead and just snug this up a bit. There we go. And that way I can, you know, I can turn it if I have to, you know, finagle something here and there and so forth. All right, let's get our motor uncovered and let's get started and stab this puppy in there. All right, so we are about ready. So I got my cam here. Remember, always keep it, you know, in its wrapper there, so you don't want to ding up any of the lobes or the bearing surfaces or anything. And we got our lube that Bullet sent with their cam. It's driven racing oil, assembly grease. So it's like an extreme pressure lubricant. And we will go ahead and get started here. You'll see what I mean, what I was talking about with this, putting this nice long bolt on here. It really helps having a grip out here for this camshaft. So let's get our stuff lubed up here. We'll get out to the first or second cam bearing here. Get some lube on there. Get all that nice and lubed up. The break-in process on a flat tappet camshaft is very important, and important to the point where if you don't get it right, these lobes will wear down and go flat on you in no time. And when you go back to the cam manufacturer, they're going to say, well, you didn't break the cam in right. 99.9% of the time, that's the case. You know, somebody didn't break the cam in properly. But what we're going to do is we're going to have video of the whole break-in process. So, of course, you're seeing me lube this cam up before I put it in using the lube that they gave us. Now we'll get it started in here and get it in to this second bearing, and then it'll hold itself. And we just want to be real nice and gentle there. Now once you have it in on that second cam bearing, she'll hold in place there. That'll make it easier for us to lube up the rest of this cam. We'll get her lubed up real good here. Well, make sure you get some on that distributor gear too. That way everything's nice and well lubricated when you go to start this thing up. And of course I'm going to prime the oil pump first, but still, that's your first few seconds of startup are where most of your wear can happen. Alright, we'll just use up the last of this cam lube here and just make sure we got everything goobered up real good. Right. Now you'll notice I don't have the crank gear on here yet, and I did that on purpose because it just makes it easier getting this cam in here, because you can always slide that bottom gear on real easy. Sometimes when you're going to get this last cam bearing in, it's a challenge trying to line all these cam bearings up and line your timing mark up and all that good stuff. So that's why I kind of like to do it this way. Now, the cool bit is once you get in there towards the end here, you can stick your hand in this hole in the back here where normally where the cam plug is, because we haven't put that in yet, and that'll help you. That helps you get lined up, and just goes in so nice and easy like that. See? Now she's in. Alright, now before we go get too far ahead and putting our bottom cam gear on, we want to go ahead and bolt the thrust plate in here on our camshaft. So what we'll need to do is you gotta spin this thing around here, get it lined up. It only lines up one way, just so you know. So you're gonna have to finagle it around here. Sometimes you might just have to bring it out just a smidge to get it past that galley plug that's in there. That's why I don't play the lottery. I had a 50% chance of having that lined up, and I got it wrong. And we'll get our bolt started here. That's why they got these big holes in the timing gear, so you can get through there and get your bolt started. Now, torque spec on these is 9 to 12 foot-pounds. That's not a lot. So you don't want to go over wrenching on these things. So we'll use our little baby torque wrench here, as most of your bigger torque wrenches will only go down to like 10 or 20 foot-pounds. You won't get 9 to 12 out of it. So I kind of like this one. Isn't it cute? It's like, where's its mommy? Yeah. So we will get these threaded in here all the way. And then we'll take them on up, 9 to 12 inch-pounds. Not a lot. Sometimes you don't think it's gonna hold it, but it does. All right, she's in there. Now we'll get our timing mark roughly where we want it to be. We can take this off now. And your crank gear has a bevel also. Okay, and that goes towards the motor. Now she'll slide on there nice and easy most of the way. But that last little bit, you're gonna have to persuade it a little bit, because there's a little lip right there where that crank gear goes down on. So we're going to line our gear up just like that. And she'll go in there nice and tidy. And then those two marks will line up. They're helical cut, so you know you actually start almost one tooth off, and then as it goes in, then they'll line up. So, all right, I'll just persuade that on with a rubber mallet. Get it on that, get it seated in the last bit. Okay, now we can see our timing marks are lined up. And another indicator on that is the keyway on the crank gear and the keyway on the timing gear. Okay, should both be at 12 o'clock. Now the perspective's a little wonky with the camera here, but they're both at 12 o'clock. So far all the mechanicals are good. All right. So we got our new cam all stabbed in there and degreed it up. Came in pretty much dead on the money. So we just had to line our timing marks up, and our lift and open and close and everything happens when it's supposed to. It's not, you know, happening too late or too early. And so now we're gonna start putting this thing together, and hopefully maybe we'll be able to get it fired up here by the weekend if we're lucky.